What's up, everybody? Welcome to Mega Powers podcast with Big John and Doc. Here talking NFL briefly, college football, the playoff, and Ohio State football. Doc, how's it going, buddy?
Man, I'm doing good. Good to be on here in 2023. Hopefully, everybody had a fun New Year's Eve. When you get to be my age with 3 kids, your idea of midnight is about a quarter after 10.
Right. Right. So let me remind everybody before I get too far ahead of myself, like, share, subscribe, comment, share. I already said that. And follow me on Getter, Twitter, Truth Social at @the_real_Big John, a handle Doc made up for me 10, 12 years ago. So I think we just need to kind of reflect here at the beginning on something that happened last night. And we don't know the full details yet, but Damar Hamlin suffered cardiac arrest on the football field. It came after a collision with a Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver. And it seemed like a routine NFL play. Hamlin popped back up and then immediately fell backwards. And frankly, I got up and left the room and turned the TV off at that point, thinking, well, I've seen guys get their bell rung before. And about 20 minutes later, I happened to look at my phone, and Doc had texted me, this guy might have died on the field. And I'm like, what? So I flipped my Hulu back over to the game and see Susie Colbert and the rest of the ESPN team being very somber in their tone. And I'm like, oh my God. And then it turns out it was the guy who I thought got his bell rung. That's old school term for a concussion. His heart stopped for almost 9 minutes, and thankfully for the prayers, they were able to restart his heart on the field, and then get him to a medical facility just a few blocks away, where last I heard he was in critical condition, but getting better, I guess you could say. I don't want to say too much because nothing's official, but he is in critical condition. And I think with prayers and doctors and technology, I think he might be okay. But we still need to keep him and his family in prayers. Doc, were you watching this as it happened? I totally missed it.
Oh yeah, I was fully engaged in the game, and I'll tell you, not to make light of the situation at all, but in Ohio we now have sports betting, and I signed up for an account and was betting during the Rose Bowl on some prop bets, and then made a 3-bet parlay on the Bengals Bills game, and was tuning in. I've been into the action a little bit more than normal. So it's something what money will do to motivate you to watch an athletic event.
Right.
But I was having a great time and looking forward to the game, not only because of that, but because of these are 2 of the best teams in the AFC.
Right.
Two of the 3 best teams. Cincinnati was playing for a division title, maybe a bye in the first round. There was a lot at stake. And this was very early in the game, I think in the 5-minute mark of the first quarter. And this defender, I had no idea who this guy was, right, prior to this. I've read some about him since, and he seems like a guy that has grown up through some difficult circumstances and has really paid forward to the community and done some really good things. I don't know if you know anything about that. We could get into that a little bit later, just the kind of guy that he is. And thank God we can still say the kind of guy that he is. Because I saw this, and the hit to me didn't look all that bad. Of course, we know that, sometimes the hits that don't look bad are the ones that actually are bad. But it really wasn't a hit here that was the problem, at least, the problem was his heart stopped. Whether or not that was caused by the hit, I don't think we know, or maybe caused by other things that we're not aware of. The guy had a medical incident on the field. And when I texted you and said, this guy may have died, I was right, because he did die.
Yeah, for about 9 minutes.
He had SDS, sudden death syndrome.
Oh.
So I'm not a doctor, but I was listening to some medical folks on a podcast earlier this morning, a registered advanced nurse practitioner, talking about what happened to him. And he, in her assessment of the situation, and she was not there, that, and this is what she knows, that's what he had. And then, so he went into, and again, I'm not a doctor, but an AFib situation, where you then develop an irregular heartbeat, and then you have to have those paddles.
Right.
And that's when you saw the emergency squad come onto the field, which was highly unusual. You saw both teams circle around him, because what they were doing to him was bringing him back to life.
Right.
They were shocking him, and if you've ever seen something like that in real life, that's a pretty violent sort of thing to see, especially on an unresponsive body.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen somebody have a seizure in person, you're getting kind of close to what you kind of see, and it's disturbing as hell to see somebody like that. I knew that it wasn't, or put it this way, I felt pretty confident that it wasn't a concussion when I saw him hit the ground.
Really?
That was the first thing that stood out to me. When you see a guy get concussed, a lot of times you'll almost see like their body freeze, clench up, and their hands go up to their head, and it just they kind of freeze there for a moment.
Right, yeah, okay, like a knockout in a fight.
Right. Hamlin dropped like a sack of potatoes. I mean, dropped. And I thought to myself, that's more than just a concussion. And what it was is he dropped dead for a period of time.
Yeah, literally. I mean, wow.
And thank God, the power of prayer was on display there. All these people that say prayers aren't enough after things bad that happen, check yourself.
Yeah.
Because that's immediately what these people did. They surrounded him and the medical people in a prayer chain.
Yes.
And you saw the power of Jesus Christ come down and save this man's life. It wasn't his time.
Yeah, I did want to touch on that. You brought up his charitableness, and the power of prayer works, and God heard his people last night and said it's not time, and we witnessed a tragedy and a miracle in one, and you talked about this young man has a charity situation for Christmas presents for kids, and it's a GoFundMe, and his goal was $2,500. He's a second-year NFL player, so not a household name, but at the time of his death, for 9 minutes or so, that charity was at $7,500. by midnight, I was watching this on ESPN. It had hit over $1 million. And why do I feel that that's important to bring up? Man, that shows you the love and human kindness in this world. We always see the negatives and the bad in the news, and we remember the bad things. But man, it went viral on social media. Prayers for Duron. I'm gonna mess his name up every time. Damar Hamlin. Prayers for Damar Hamlin went viral immediately, and then this charity went viral. And man, this young man's gonna be able to make a good Christmas for a lot of kids for a long time, and that also is a miracle, taking something bad and turning it into something good. So, fans went to the hospital and started prayer vigils and candlelight outside the hospital. And it was not a nice weather day in Ohio last night. Isn't today either, but uh, fans outside the hospital praying, lighting candles. Uh, Stephon Diggs, one of the superstar wide receivers of the NFL, had to know how his teammate was, had to know how his friend was, what's wrong with my friend. And he took an Uber. He just left the stadium and got in an Uber and went to the hospital. So we saw a great showing of human emotion and kindness and love of Jesus Christ last night in the middle of a tragedy. And hopefully this man recovers and is well and everything. So, Doc, do you want any final thoughts on this situation?
Yeah, I thought the NFL did the right thing by suspending the game. I don't know when they'll make it up. Certainly, when you have an injury, that always takes the kind of air out of the game, especially bad injuries. This was a situation where, I'm sure everybody on that field thought he was dead.
Mm-hmm.
And, you could see the look on their faces. So I thought the coaches handled it well, the officials handled it well, and ultimately the NFL handled it well. I don't care how long it took them to make the decision. People got, there's a lot of boxes that have to get checked on something like this. So I thought everything was handled about as good as could be expected. Once they took the players off of the field, I knew that was it. There wasn't going to be a game after that point. It appears that, he was, I'm not saying he was in good shape, but may have actually ended up being better than what we all thought, and certainly better than what we all feared. But he's got a long road to toe. Intubated, dead for 9 minutes, basically. He's going to have some recovery. And so I just hope that he can recover and eventually down the road, address whatever health issue he has,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe it was a hit, as a consequence of the hit, but also hopefully we'll see him playing again on Sundays.
Right, yeah. I think that would be such a phenomenal story to see him back on a football field. But right now, we're just happy that he is alive and in good hands of doctors, but more importantly, in God's hands. So, Doc, Ohio State.
Oh, God. I mean, to be honest with you, Big John, I was not expecting a win. I was hopeful that the game would be close.
Right.
But after that Michigan game, I wasn't sure what we were going to get, because that was just a horrible, horrible, horrible game. I have not seen an Ohio State team, not just certainly against Michigan, get manhandled like that, especially in the second half. But just period, just get pushed around in their own stadium.
Right.
And I was pretty critical on Ryan Day. I'm not saying that he should be fired, but I was critical. I've been critical on Tressel and Urban Meyer when they went through spells. That doesn't mean that you want to see anybody get fired. You're just a fan and you're being critical.
That's what being a fan is.
That's what being a fan is. But man, I got to tell you, you knew, and I took Ohio State in the points. So at the end of the day, I kind of won cheaply, but I won.
Win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat. So.
Or always bet the points.
Yeah.
You know. I mean, that first quarter, I thought, man, this is a completely different team.
Mm-hmm.
Their preparation could not have been any better. And this C.J. Stroud, it's going to be kind of like the Braxton Miller, the Justin Fields, even the J.T. Barrett to a degree, curse of the Ohio State quarterback. You know, just being so good, but you don't win anything. You know, you don't win the national champion. In Stroud's case, he hasn't even beaten Michigan. I mean, it's incredible. This guy's going to probably go to the NFL, and he's not going to have beaten Michigan. But he played outstanding, and the play calling was great up until the fourth quarter, and the defense even played pretty well and really good at times, but then ultimately gave out. End of the day, just too much for the Buckeyes to overcome with the officiating, with Marvin Harrison getting knocked out.
Yeah, I think that changed the game.
You also had, and a lot of people, this isn't really an excuse, but you take a look at the whole entire season, and Ohio State played that last fourth quarter against the number one team in the country and defending national champions in their backyard without their number one or two wide receiver, without their number one or number two running back, and without their number one tight end, and with a whole host of people dinged up that we don't even know about.
Right. Yeah, C.J. Stroud, to me, was the MVP of that game in spite of the loss. He put that team on his back, and man, he was just laser focused in from pre-game through the end. And
the Georgia defensive backs, John, could barely stay with Ohio State's receivers for 2 seconds.
Yeah, that was Georgia's one Achilles heel, and Ohio State is like wide receiver U lately. We've got some of the best receivers, and when Marvin Harrison went down, I was like, man, that's a game changer. But I also said to myself, you know what? Our third string wide receiver is better than most starting wide receivers. So, you hate to see a guy get hurt, and Harrison looked like he could have went back in, but the concussion protocols of today, that's not going to happen.
happen.
He's
not going back in. But the frustrating thing of it was, to me, is that whole exchange, and there are other things that happened during that game, but that whole exchange changed the total complexity of the game.
Right.
That should have been first off, that was called a targeting.
Yes.
On the field, and that is typically 15 yards and a new first down, and then they review the play to see if the player should be ejected.
Yeah, I thought that's what they were doing.
But the penalty usually stays. It doesn't get labeled like ejectable targeting. It goes down to something else. In this particular case, that didn't even happen. So it's highly unusual for the field to make a call like that, and for the replay booth to initiate the replay and then overturn it and then negate any kind of penalty. this, and for the people that want to sit here and say, "Oh, he led with his shoulder pad," and well, then how the hell did he get knocked out?
Right. Exactly. I saw
and
helmet to helmet.
Well, so you don't even need helmet to helmet under the targeting rule, and a lot of people are talking out of their hindquarters here.
Well, that's true too.
You can't lead with shoulder pad, forearm, or your head, the crown of your helmet, and make contact with somebody else neck up. You can't do it. You cannot. And I have seen, and you have seen, and everyone listening to this podcast has seen instances where you have a defenseless receiver and they just brush up against them and it's target.
Right.
I mean, all you got to do is breathe on a quarterback. And there was a call in the Michigan game where Michigan got called for roughing the passer, and it wasn't.
Yeah, you can't do the old Jack Tatum forearm shiver to the skull anymore.
Right, yeah. And so, bottom line is, without belaboring the point, that was at minimum, if you look at the whole film, that guy, yeah, it was kind of a jump ball. And Stroud didn't get it out of bounds. He was trying to throw it away. But that player came running straight over there with a full head of steam.
Oh, he was looking to hurt him.
He'd lay him out. He was going to lay him out.
Yeah.
And because that was his only play. Well, guess what? You're not supposed to do that. That's what we're trying to talk. That's what we're talking about here. Keeping players safe.
Right.
And you're not supposed to. And my question is beyond even why did the booth look at it? My question is, why didn't they at least give him an unsportsmanlike penalty? Because that still would have been first down at the 2-yard line. And Ohio State runs that thing in and goes up at 4 points and wins this game more than likely.
Right.
So that's the frustrating part there is that totally they had to settle for a field goal. That was a 4-point swing. And the whole complexity, not only that, but then Harrison is out, and that changes everything.
Yeah, and I don't understand. I agree with everything you're saying. You hit every point. But where's the replay booth in college football? When this happens in the NFL, they say, well, they're in New York reviewing this play, blah, blah. The referees on the field got the call right, and somebody somewhere else took it out of their hands. Where was that somebody else located?
I heard people say Pittsburgh.
Okay.
I don't know if there was some kind of, maybe that was just for the Michigan game. I don't know. But there are people reviewing this thing that aren't even in the stadium, let alone on the field.
Right. And I think something like that, the person on the field is going to have a better view, better sight of things. Go ahead.
You want to talk about conspiracy theories and how the Big Ten gets jobbed. You don't want to go down that road because it's just, you'll bang your head up against the wall, even though I like doing it sometimes in politics and whatever. But man, when you have a situation where in the Michigan game, the guy's butt.
Oh my God, yeah. Let's move on to the Michigan game. Go ahead, start with that.
Well, yeah. So the guy, the guy's butt gets into the end zone, and they say he was down. He gets into the end zone, but they mess it up. They mess the spot up, and it's clear as day. And even the guy on the thing says that's a touchdown. And they come in, and they misspot the ball, and then they screw up the call. And then Ohio State gets jobbed, not once, but kind of twice with that timeout.
Yeah.
It's amazing that Kirby Smart got that timeout. Granted to him like he did.
That was shit. That was shitty.
It was shitty. So you want to, it's real easy when you have all of these controversial calls, not only go against Ohio State, but go against the Big Ten almost universally. And look, it wasn't even this year. I mean, go back to Ohio State and Clemson about 4 years ago, and one call, it was a clear interception, and they said the guy never caught it. the receiver never had possession of it for it to be stripped away from him. And Ohio State got jobbed there. I mean, at some point in time, you do have to sit there and go, why is it every time there are these controversial calls, they go against the Big Ten? So, but yeah, Michigan, now I'll tell you this, I've got less sympathy for them, A, because I don't like them.
Right.
But they are some cocky guys up there, led by the cock of the walk in Harbaugh. And they didn't take, I'm telling you, they weren't prepared, and they didn't take this team serious.
No, they didn't. TCU's coach, what's his name? Tell me.
Sonny Dykes.
Yeah, Sonny Dykes. This guy is cool. He said at the end of the game, we came into this wanting to kick some ass because all we heard all month was the Big Ten is going to roll all over us. We're this small school, and the Big Ten is going to roll all over us. Now, with the exception of Michigan, I'm a Big Ten fan, and I still said, yeah, they gave TCU all the locker room poster jargon they needed to get fired up for this. And TCU is a good team. I don't care if they start unranked or not. They are tough. Their quarterback, even though he runs like a freaking linebacker, when he has to tuck and run. And man, I thought that TCU was going to win. I picked TCU, and they came out and they had all that speed. They didn't get wore down by the Michigan offensive line like some teams do over the year. And they came out with a chip on their shoulder and chipped away at Michigan and won.
And it went back and forth and had Michigan, look, there were some bad calls that went against Michigan. But what in the hell was Harbaugh thinking on that first drive where they went for it on fourth or something?
Yeah, fourth and goal.
Third down or something. Yeah, and they called some cockamamie trick play. And it's like, what the hell is this guy doing?
He's being arrogant. He's being Jim Harbaugh.
Being arrogant. Right. It's typical Jim Harbaugh. And so, I do think that Michigan got jobbed big. But, hey, they ended up fumbling the ball. And they still had a lot of the game ahead of them. And they did have a couple other questionable calls. But the bottom line there is they just did not take that team seriously. And you could see it.
Yeah.
Now, when you turn to the national championship game, personally, I think the national championship game, at the end of the day, people will look back at this and say it was Ohio State or Georgia. Yeah. I personally think Georgia is going to run all over TCU. And that's no disrespect to TCU. But the strength that Ohio State had on offense is not what TCU has. And I just think the matchup there, you're going to see a real, I'm here to tell you guys, the SEC, and I'm not just talking Alabama now, the whole friggin' conference has these tree stumps for defensive linemen.
Oh, they're monsters.
And they just, they just gobble up offensive linemen. And their linebackers then are free to roam. And the offensive linemen can't get to the second level to block those linebackers to pop the big plays. You got to have a balanced attack. You look what Ohio State did to Alabama. That doesn't happen very often. Not the last time, but the time before. And I just think TCU doesn't stack well. I don't think they stack well against Georgia, and I think it's going to be a blowout, personally.
Yeah, I'm going to bet on TCU in this one. My brain tells me a Georgia blowout, but TCU's been special all year, and maybe they got a special season in them. I'm not sure, but just for the record, I'll take TCU in this one. The Horned Frogs are Cinderella this season.
Well, those intangibles, Big John. Look, I'm a big believer in intangibles in football. when it comes down to this level and at this point in the season. I mean, you've seen it over and over again, and the biggest example was Ohio State and Miami in the national title game 20 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
Where you had this, nobody gave Ohio State the time of day, and what happened? They came out and hit Miami in the mouth so damn hard. The quarterback got glassy eyes, and we, ended Willis McGahee's career. And the whole thing just went upside down for them.
Right.
And the program hadn't been the same since.
Right. Yeah, that was Miami's last big run after having a dominant 90s, or one of the dominant teams in college football for the 90s. And we ended their dominance and started 23 years of Ohio State dominance in college football, with a few exceptions. But I mean, a 20-year run of good, even more than respectable play in college football.
We'll see where we go from here. There's rumors that Harbaugh is trying to get the Denver head coaching job, or at least trying to get back into the NFL. And personally, he shot his load the last 2 years. They went out and they beefed up on staff that he knows not going to be there forever. They heavily recruited above their skis. They went all in to win now, and I don't know if that team is built to reload. I mean, they're a very good team. They were built to beat Ohio State, and they did for the last 2 years, and beat them bad. Right. Now, the flip side is where does Ryan Day go from here? And where does Jim Knowles go from here? A lot of people are really on Jim Knowles, the defensive coordinator at Ohio State, because, the defense, again, gave up 80 points in the last 2 games of the season.
Well, I think, to just interrupt you a second, I think, they gave up a lot of points, but he doesn't have his players on defense, and Ohio State hasn't recruited well on defense. So he's got to work with Ryan Day and say, hey, get me some linemen and some linebackers. For the last 10 years under, who was the previous head coach? Urban Meyer. Ohio State was the University of cornerbacks. We were churning out NFL cornerbacks like crazy. Now we got corners that can't keep up with wide receivers. So, I think that the Georgia game was a redemption for Noel and Ryan Day. I think it put them on good standing. They had a good scheme. They just got outplayed a little bit. And then our kicker had nerves, had problems at the end. Something went awry. But I think it was a redemption game for this coaching staff.
Well, I'll say this much. I'm not in the category that says you got to shit can anybody right now. I think Ryan Day has some issues that he's got to work out. He's basically a new head coach, 4 years in, but it's been his program the last couple with his players and his stuff. And this defense is bigger than Jim Knowles. The problems, I don't think Ohio State has had a really, what I would call an Ohio State caliber defense since 2014.
Right. I agree.
They've been playing patchwork, since then, But what I saw this year, not to get into like the minutia of it, what I saw this year was players in position. Now, it's not Jim Knowles' fault that some guy slips or misses a tackle.
Right.
The guy was in the right position, but he screwed up. And Ohio State's playing a 4-2-5 base defense. That's crazy. I mean, the fact that we don't have 3 linebackers that can get on the field and play in a base defense. And I know a lot of times when you play these teams that spread it out, you kind of have to go into like a nickel or maybe bring in a Viper hybrid position to come in. But man, in these big games, you've got to have, and we've got 2 of them, but we don't have 3, and that's just not Ohio State football.
Right.
So I think he's, clearly, I saw improvement at least schematically, and at times better than last year. So now I think you're right. The onus is on them to get recruiting and get some people in that can fit this and what we need to do.
Yes, absolutely. So the rest of the story, what the rest of these bowl games, how many did you watch? It was bowl week. It was top to bottom college bowls. Did you see the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl?
No. So you know, I'll use my kids. I'll throw them under the bus. You know, it's just difficult when you've got three little ones running around.
Right.
To tell the wife, hey, I'm going to go upstairs in the attic and watch 8 hours worth of college football. That's just not going to work. And of course, the kids they want to watch Bluey and they want to watch Peppa Pig and things like that. But I did see the thing about the Jimmy Kimmel Bowl that you sent me. Yeah. So apparently they handed out championship belts to the winner.
Yeah, the whole team got championship belts, which I thought was kind of corny, but I was thinking, man, you know, normally when you win a bowl game, the university gets a trophy for their trophy case and the players get nothing. I mean, maybe if you win a national championship, you get a ring, but you know, usually it's like, well, I have the memory of playing on a bowl game. At least Jimmy Kimmel gave all these kids something to hold on to the rest of their lives, or however long, where they can say, hey, I was in LA, I won a bowl game, and I got to meet Jimmy Kimmel. You know, Jimmy Kimmel's not that big a deal to me, but to, you know, the college player, you know, that's probably a big deal. That was kind of funny.
No, now what I would have liked even better is if it would have been a ripoff, a belt design from like one of the wrestling programs from like the 80s, like maybe the big gold belt or the Hogan belt, or you know, or just like variations of belts, you know, but with like the, you know, bowl champion on it. I always thought the television title belt that Tully Blanchard had and others, Ole Anderson and others, was probably the sleekest looking belt. I like that red background on that silver silver plated championship belt. But regardless, I thought it was pretty cool. These guys are going around belts around their shoulders. It looked pretty entertaining. I couldn't tell you who won the damn game, but the belts were pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know who won the game either. Looking at the big bowl games, who gives a shit about the Idaho Potato Bowl, the Myrtle Beach Bowl? Who cares? We did point out earlier there were 7 Mid-American Athletic Conference schools in the college bowls this year, which tells you
crazy.
There's a lot of freaking bowl games out there.
That toilet bowl at that point.
Yeah, right.
It used to. College football was always better than the NCAA tournament, though, but not this much better. I mean, in the NCAA tournament, the MAC will get one team in, the tournament champ,
right?
The automatic bid. Maybe 2 teams like every 20 years. But I can't believe there's 7 teams in the MAC for football that even could qualify to get to a bowl.
Right.
But Kent State, I don't think made it.
No, unfortunately, they have made 1 or 2 bowl games lately. Then.
Well, that's incredible that MAC would have 7 teams in the damn bowls.
Right. Notre Dame did break their bowl losing streak, or mediocre streak. They won the Gator Bowl. That's a pretty big deal. That was December 30th in the afternoon.
Well, they played, what was it, NC State?
South Carolina. So
okay. Yeah, SEC school. I mean, that's a quality win.
Yeah, that's not too shabby.
So what's going on with Dante Hittner at Notre Dame? I'm telling you, I just don't think he's going to pan out.
Yeah, I don't know if he's the coach for them. I kind of feel bad when you're thrown into that program with names that are household names, legendary coaches. I'm sorry, but Brian Kelly was not a legend. He just was there so damn long. He eventually took the most wins at Notre Dame, but whatever. I don't.
Well, he also took the payday. Go down. Take the paycheck and go down to the SEC, end your career, and see what you can win down there. I mean, LSU's not a shabby program.
Yeah,
He might be
LSU.
able to put something together.
He might get his national championship at LSU. They've got a solid program all around that school. But our predictions for the New Year's 6 bowl games, we both.
Yeah, how did we pan out?
You got 2 right. I got 3 right. So we both missed Ohio State, of course. I got TCU over Michigan, and then the Orange Bowl. You picked Clemson to beat Tennessee. Tennessee won that one.
They kicked the shit out of Clemson.
I think they did. And then
I did watch that one, the last quarter and a half, and Clemson looked like they looked like a MAC school.
Yeah, that's what I heard. They looked like a JV team. And
there was talk about Clemson should be in the college football playoffs, and I always thought here at TCU could win the whole damn thing, but I thought that Alabama should have got in. But there were some people saying that Clemson should have been considered for it.
Yeah, it looked like this was a comeback season for Clemson after a few seasons of not being one of the dominant teams in college football.
Well, the good news is, John, we're going to go to 12-team playoff next year, so we don't have to worry. I mean, what argument could there be between the 12 and the 13th team? I mean,
right.
I think this controversy is going to be over when you got the 4 or 5 major conference champions will more than likely get in, and then you still have 5 or 6 at large at that point.
Right. And so we had Bama versus K-State in the Sugar Bowl. Alabama rolled Kansas State. You took Alabama and spotted me 21 points, and I still don't think I could have won.
No.
K-State got thumped.
Bama, it looked kind of whatever for a minute in that game. But I'm telling you, even on an off year, Alabama is a tough out. And it really is. It's not even fair to put Alabama. First off, Kansas State should have never even won the Big 12. TCU screwed up, and everyone knows it, and they even admit it. So it's kind of like that Purdue-LSU game. The only reason Purdue was in that kind of game against LSU is because they made it to the Big Ten championship.
Yeah.
And they got boat raced by LSU. But even with that said, Kansas State's better than Purdue. And Alabama made Kansas State look like a D1A AA school.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Alabama's just, say what you want to say about Nick Saban. They are back to being like the Bear Bryant years, a dominant team. And, really, you don't hear a lot of negativity coming out of their program. They've got good quarterbacks. They got clean players.
Yeah.
So, moving on
I'll tell you what I'll say about Nick Saban is
go ahead.
The greatest college football coach, more than likely, of all time.
Oh, I think so. That's an
what
argument.
I'll say about him. Yeah, I mean, he did it. He did it in Michigan State to the degree that's possible at that time up there. He did it in LSU, and he did it in Alabama. And after 1 year, he has. So what is this? 14 years? I mean, usually these programs, the big ones, they can last about a decade.
Right.
And they kind of, the coach moves on or it goes by the wayside. This guy's a decade and a half.
Yeah, he's doing it and doing it well. in Alabama, and I think he'll probably retire there. So what do we have next? USC versus Tulane. This was a game. Tulane brought it, and they upset the Trojans. The Green Wave
The Green
beat.
Wave with blue stripes on their jerseys. I never could figure that out.
Yeah.
The USC's starting to play like they're already in the Big Ten.
Right.
But I'll tell you about USC, and here's what Ohio State may have to do. And they better not be too proud of themselves about it. But that transfer portal,
right.
It's kind of like the old school JUCO transfer. The bigger programs, we don't need JUCO players. Well, you need transfer portals JUCO on steroids.
Yeah.
And that's how USC was able to turn it around so quick. But I was surprised to see not only Tulane win that game, but the amount of points that got scored.
That was a. Go ahead.
I decided Tulane or USC was much better than, even though they choked at Utah. I just chalked that up as whatever. But apparently there was something to it.
Yeah, well, Utah came out with a chip on their shoulder, came out bowling over people, and they pulled it out. So what the Tulane and USC game, you had 91 points scored, 46-45. That was just awesome. Watch Tulane come back and win. I like an underdog,
these bowl games, Big John, that we're talking about here, isn't the New Mexico Humanitarian Bowl or the Poinsettia Bowl or whatever kind of bowl. These are the games that were the the 2 playoff games, the 6 total, big package games.
These are all the teams that will be in the playoffs next year.
These are all the teams in the playoffs next year. But was there a game where there wasn't, 60 points scored between the two teams?
Yeah, that's true. I don't think so. Every game was high scoring.
I mean, maybe the college football season is just too damn long. And these kids are just, the offensive schemes and the rules of the game do favor quarterbacks and scoring points. But you just got to wonder after 14 games if these youngsters are just not spent.
I think so to a point, and it's more on the defensive side that they seem to wear down over the season. Now, when we start this playoff stuff, you're going to have to go to a 10-game regular season at some point and get rid of these conference championship games, because that's just too much football. That's like an NFL season and a game.
Playoffs are not. The conference championship games have to go. They're worthless. I mean, why would Michigan have to take the field to play for the Big Ten championship against Purdue?
Right.
I mean, that's silly. And people say, well, Utah beat USC and K-State beat TCU, so maybe they do mean something. Well, to me, that doesn't prove the value of the conference championship game. It just shows how silly it is that, teams, and Purdue's the outlier because they wouldn't make the top 12 anyhow.
Yeah.
USC, Utah, TCU, K-State, those 4 teams very well could have made the playoffs. Right. But the point is these conference title games, they should go now. But to the bigger point, they gotta go away. These divisions, if you're gonna have conferences with 20 teams in them, then you get rid of the divisions, you try to play as many conference games as you can, and you just go straight into the playoffs.
Yeah, you're almost gonna, in a way, you might well see, how Kent State, they play a tough schedule. They'll play 4 non-MAC schools. They'll play Alabama. They'll play Georgia. They'll play Ohio State. you're not going to see these smaller Division One schools anymore playing against the Big Ten. Uh, you're going to see a lot of in-conference play on all levels. You're going to see maybe 10 Big Ten versus Big Ten games, and 10 SEC versus SEC games. It's not going to be like it is now where, you got teams playing, dream matchups sometimes where Ohio State will play Oregon or they'll play Texas in an early game. You're just going to see conference play, I think, in the future.
I think you'll see 10-game conference play.
Yeah.
And so that'll leave maybe 2 games. See, I don't think they're going to shorten the regular season. I think you get maybe 2 non-conference games. But then the question is, who gets those slots? And I think instead of seeing teams play 2 or 3 cupcakes, they might play 1.
Yeah. One warm-up game at the beginning of the year, and then, a big game out of conference, and then 10 conference games.
And there should be some schedule parity in this. Well, look, first off, the Big Ten and the SEC and whatever comes out of the ACC and Pac-10, the mergers that may happen there and further realignment that's going to come. We could talk about that on another show, but it's coming. There needs to be some schedule parity. The fact that the SEC still only plays an 8-game conference schedule, and you take a look at how the schedules are gamed, where there's bye weeks ahead of big games for Alabama and LSU. There's, cupcake games at the end of the year between the Citadel before Auburn plays Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you just take a look at this thing. And then you've got the Big Ten that plays a 9-game conference schedule, and it's backloaded. Like it's 9 conference games in a row. Whatever comes to this moving forward, there's got to be a uniform system under the new College Football Governing Board. And I think that will replace the NCAA as this whole business side of this takes over.
Yeah, it's
and the players unionize and get paid. They need to say, look, if you're in this deal with us, you got to play 10 conference games, and take it from there. This is kind of silly.
It's going to be a lot of money moving around. Like I said, the NIL came along at the perfect time for the college playoff. Now they're talking about outright paying players. That's going to be crazy. But let's not, before we have to go, we can't overlook the granddaddy of them all. We haven't talked about the Rose Bowl.
Oh, boy.
And I thought Utah was going to win this game. You picked Penn State. And Penn State did end up running up the score at the end there and getting a good, solid win against a good Utah team. Utah makes me want to see how this college playoff is going to work, because that's a team that could have upset a few people in that college tournament that we're going to have next year.
I won $200 in prop bets on that game alone. $150 because Utah came out on their second or third possession, and their first play was a pass for a first down. I won $150 because that's for the play that I guessed. So I had a lot of action and a lot of heat coming from my house here at Broadcast Park during the Rose Bowl. A lot of heat, a lot of action going on. I mean, I took Utah by 3.5. I took Penn State by 1.5 at one point during the game. They were giving Penn State points when it was close. I'm hedging my bets. I'm jumping on that. End of the day, I ended up winning with 2 spread bets. Penn State giving 1.5 and getting 1.5. I covered both of them.
Nice.
Yeah, and I was able to do a lot of that because I had like 8 free $25 bets as part of the promotion. So I was just betting on crazy shit. But can I tell you one that stings?
What's that?
So do you remember that 86-yard Penn State was
Yeah.
like on the okay. So they went to commercial break, and I'm searching through the prop bets, and I see next play at 7,000 to 1 odds.
Oh my gosh.
And I thought, I wonder, like, what because I was like, what would $100 bet be on this? And you have to put the bet in, and I almost hit. I'm like, what the hell? I'm playing with basically free money at this point.
Yeah.
You know, and sure as shit, they scored an 86. If I would have hit that green button, I would have won $6,000.
Oh man.
But I was never really serious about it. I was just kind of more curious. So it's not like it is that big of a deal. But point of the matter is, the Rose Bowl was great. Penn State, that will help the Big Ten.
Yes.
All right. This will help the Big Ten because Ohio State got into the playoff after getting boat raced by Michigan because of that win against Penn State. And Penn State became the second-ranked team in the country because of their win over Penn State. So Penn State has a lot of respect in the country right now, and this win was big. And so I think, when all's said and done, coming into next fall, you've got some teams that have some respect by the voters.
Right.
Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State.
Yep. Definitely. Big Ten's a good conference. It's not, you got the big Ohio State. Now Michigan is back. Penn State has always been a top 10 team. And then Wisconsin's going to get good with their new head coach.
Illinois.
Yeah, Illinois is going to be good.
And Nebraska's got a new coach. I mean, yeah, they've got the groundwork here. Don't forget Michigan State. They had an off year, but they're typically pretty good.
Yeah, they're not the doormat they used to be. So, Doc, what's your final thought on college football in the last 2.5 minutes here?
I'm going with Georgia all the way. I think they'll probably easily clear TCU. We'll see what happens. And then I'm looking forward to quiet off season. Buckeyes getting healthy. See if CJ Stroud comes back. I don't know if he will. I doubt it. But see how they can address some of these holes and enjoy the summer, enjoy the spring, and in due course, look forward to another season of college football and shooting it with you guys here on the podcast.
Awesome, man. Hey, we'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for listening and watching.